Tyler, we were just talking about broadband and the internet, and with this pandemic, it has really put this issue on the forefront. We knew that it needed to be addressed at one point in time, but let's hope the silver lining coming out of the pandemic and this crisis is the discussion around the internet. And one of the people that's helping to really push this issue, State Senator Rosemary Bayer, with us here. She's represents District 12. Always great to have you with us.
Thank you, Ronnie. It's always great to be here. Hello, Tyler. Nice to see you guys.
Before we jump into talk about the budget, can we talk a little bit about internet and the access and some of the legislation that's moving forward around this issue?
Yeah, I swear every time I come on, Ronnie, you're already talking about something I really care about and I'm really involved in. I love it. I started working on it almost as soon as I got to Lansing a couple years ago because I'm technical. This is so much in my space, and working with the school districts to start with. And we started pulling together data, and we actually got some funding to help out from the Mott Foundation, which is wonderful. But then we had to kind of take a break and do emergency relief on the networks so that students had access to, because I had this sneaking suspicion in March a year and a half ago that we were going to not be in school that fall. So we ran out and we actually got some funding. We built, Wi-Fi hotspots and, other ways to emergency access for all kids. It was really, really critical. So we made a huge dent, but it was not the long-term high-speed internet that we really need to every household, every building, every business, all of it. So that work just picked back up. And then if you were watching the news this week, the governor made our first big announcement with the Office of High-Speed Internet opening up, and it's going to be part of the LEO, the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity in the state government. And that's a big deal for us. So we also introduced a set of bills to kind of go along with that. Our philosophy on this from the ground up is that everyone needs access. It also needs to be affordable, right? It's not just about having the connection to your house, but to something you can actually pay for or get, and then to have the knowledge of how to use it. So we can't forget that piece. There's a lot of seniors who didn't grow up with computers. We are concerned about kids always, but they already know how to use it. They just need access, right? But the seniors and people that are living in poverty that never had that. So the bills that we introduced address some initial funding for things, right? There's grants, regional projects. There's grants for emergency relief kind of projects, but there's also education programs for specifically for people to how to use it safely, and things that help municipalities kind of take a little bit of the initiative to build their own local networks. Many municipalities have towers that they're using for 4G or 5G access throughout the community. You could use that and extend that to be a service to your people in your network. And so bills will enable that or allow that to happen. And we're going to continue that work. So there are other public assets that we've paid for, like there's a broadband network that connects all of the school districts in the state that could be extended and provide service to people who live near those school districts. And that's most of the communities in the state that have a school district. So things like that make it easier for us to use what we already have in place, and then also to enable things in the really rural parts of the state where you just are going to need ways. We're going to have either a whole series of towers or a cable that runs, and they're going to need help with that. So the Office of High-Speed Internet will be able to facilitate those things. All the money that we're starting to see coming in for infrastructure, broadband or high-speed internet access is a big piece of that. So we're really excited. We feel like we're finally actually starting to move forward on multiple fronts. It's a big deal.
And how long do you think this maybe would have taken to get to this level had the pandemic not happened?
Well, the funding, that's been one of our big issues. There are other ways. A year and a half ago, Senator Stabenow got a grant through the Agriculture Department in the federal government to build internet access, high-speed access for 2 counties in kind of this part of the bit. So, but doing that takes a long time. Yeah. So we were getting pieces of it, but this way we're looking at, can we get this whole thing done in a couple of years, and I think we might be able to do that.
And when we're talking about the government, that is really impressive, actually.
I know, moving fast is not something government does.
Right, and, but it is an issue that I think everyone can get on board with. Maybe, there are differences surrounding how to do things and where to get from point A to point B, but I think everyone appreciates the importance of high-speed internet right now for all of us, But with that, too, I know that you're going to be doing a talk coming up about state and federal budget and how it all works. I think that's, I'm kind of a nerd, but I think it's fascinating and exciting and really educational for the public.
Well, that's great. I can talk about it endlessly, so you might have to shut me off. I'll watch for you to wave at me or something. But because that's most of my committee work is in budgets. I'm on 5 of the budgets. Personally, and I'm on the main appropriations committee for the Senate in the state of Michigan. And so, not only do we have to craft the budget for Michigan, we work. I'm constantly talking to our federal representatives about what the state needs, what the budget what they should be offering to us. And when we started all of the COVID relief funding that started last year, a year ago this time, right? We've been talking to them since then. This is the kind of stuff to focus on. First, it was almost entirely about schools and what are we going to do in the fall, right? But now we're moving on to other things, and big funding right now going to municipalities. Almost half of the money coming in the ARP, the America's Rescue Plan, is going to our communities so that they can start to recover revenue-wise all the things that they lost when those businesses shut down and there were no tax revenues, So, and then the next one is mostly about infrastructure, which makes sense, right? We're now ready. We need this broadband. We have water. You were just talking about water. We have huge ways where we need to improve our water system, the clean water, the wastewater, all of it. So
bridges,
like the bridges, yes, exactly. Roads and bridges are huge. I know that there is a proposal in place right now to get bridge funding for basically all the bridges in the state out of the ARP funds. So we are really looking at using the money that's coming in. These is big dollars for this state that we did not expect, that we would never have been able to plan in our budget, to make investments like bridges, like high-speed internet, like water pipes, those things that we have just been really struggling to bring up to par, right? They're old. Our infrastructure has been aging out, and we haven't had the funds to fix it. So this is a huge opportunity for Michigan, and we're working really hard to make sure we take the most advantage of it, for sure.
Rosemary, bear with us here on the MegaCast. She represents District 12. And Senator, if I can ask you, though, when we're talking about this, and it is a lot of money, what surrounds the discussion of how do we pay it back? This is going to be, our kids' that are going to be stuck with this bill.
Yeah. It's kind of the bigger, kind of broader economic question, right? We have been depressed in the country for a while economically. And some of it has to do, a lot of it has to do with wages and employment and, what people are actually doing. And so part of the work that's going on, the money that we're borrowing now is actually going to jumpstart the economy in a different way. And I think if you think back to the post-World War II days, we sort of went through the same kind of thing. We had to do something really dramatic to jumpstart the economy. And we borrowed a lot of money and we built a lot of roads and bridges, and we built houses and water pipes and all the things that we did with that we then didn't keep maintaining. So we're kind of looking at that, almost the same thing again. There are some new pieces like the internet, right? That's not really something that, although there were telephone lines and electrical lines and, just overall the infrastructure, there's such big expenses there, but that means that huge amounts of work go into this reconstruction. This is a good way to look at it. We're actually getting the opportunity to rebuild things that have been sitting there since the New Deal.
And we really need to have a skilled workforce to be able to, for these companies to hire to get the work done.
And that's the wage challenge right there. Exactly. We need those people to be at that level. A little bit more training, right? You go to apprentice schools, there's all kinds of opportunities right now. and all kinds of help from the state government to pay for that, right?
And when we're looking at that as well, with the federal dollars, do they have to be used within a certain amount of time?
Most of them have a timeout. It's generally 3 years. And I don't know if that will stay that way in every project. When you think about infrastructure, it's possible that that one has a longer timeout, right, when we get that, because those are big projects. We're talking about new high schools. We're talking about, all the new bridges even, right? Those things take some time, and there is going to be a shortage of workers. So we can't, even if we could identify how we're going to spend all of the money that's coming in ARP and the next one, we don't have all the people to get all those projects up and running. It's going to take some time. So, and that's part of the communication with our federal representatives. But I got to say, they're pretty smart people. They already knew that.
Because when we're talking about the infrastructure, it's like you said, there's usually a very long timeline associated with some of these projects, 5, 10, 15 years. I mean, look, I-75's been under construction as long as I've been alive.
I think so, yes.
Definitely as long as time.
Right? That's for sure.
Yeah, it's not done. So yeah, I know, and they know that. I mean, that is the thing. But that's what we're thinking about. So I expect we'll see, because the first bill had a very short time out, and they've been extending appropriate to the work that the federal government is, the problems that we're trying to attack. So I think we're going to be in good shape with this stuff as we go forward.
What other things do you have going on in your district?
Well, my district, we have one of the most interesting districts, of course, because we have everything from, socioeconomically, it's a big variety of communities. And we also have a very diverse set of people internationally and, in every other way. So it's really fun. And I spend, one of the main reasons I went to Lansing was about education. And so when I first met with our team, and what do you want to work on? Well, of course, it's education. And so I have the education budgets as part of my work, but I also work on legislation around that. And so the issues, it's really an interesting job, because I am working on these huge budget changes right now that are going on, right? How are we going to do the right things? I talk to our superintendents all the time. We have regular meetings with school board members. We have a meeting every month that any school board member can join. And we have, so we're talking about new schools. We're talking about little things that, it might seem like a small thing, as there's no legislation required. It's a rules change, but we should not make kids do PSAT tests on the first day of Ramadan, for example, when they're fasting. When they're, so things like that you hear about, because we have this diverse set of people in our district. This is something that impacts everybody. If you have a circumstance you can't go that day that's scheduled for PSAT, you need to have some flexibility. So it can be something that feels small, but it has a big impact on the people. So spend a lot of time. Right now, the focus is on teachers in many ways. We are facing a huge shortage of teachers. The governor has made a couple of proposals on ways to start to address that from an immediate perspective of paying off student loans to have teachers who will go work in at-risk or rural districts, right, that are hard to fill, or to additional opportunities for training for them, for certifications. So kind of, ways to make the current teaching staff more respected and feel better about their work and want to stay. And then also recruiting new teachers, even to the point of working in high schools with counselors to elevate the profession of teaching again, to where kids are looking ahead to that. Because the pipeline in our teaching universities, the programs where they do education, we do not have much of a pipeline.
Yeah,
so
years ago, my roommate in North Carolina, she was from, I think, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina recruited her to come down and be a teacher. She taught at the English at the junior high, and they paid for her to get her master's. And it didn't matter what her master's was in. So other states have been creative for years about trying to address this problem, and it's, I think, going to continue. Just another couple minutes left with you here on the show before we have to say goodbye for the week. Anything else that you want to bring up to your constituents?
The newest thing we got this week was, I think, the Secretary of State services, the proposal that actually it's not a proposal, that they're actually changing the way they do services to support more online services, because then you can do more from without having to go into the office, but make sure people don't have to wait a long time to get an appointment. So they're incrementally adding 25% more appointments. And then they can even go farther than that with a little boost from the legislature on funding. But also they're going to have greeters in every single branch. So if you go there and you need, you could get an appointment right on the spot if there's one available, or they will do it for you right there. They'll book your appointment right there. So for people that are not comfortable with the internet, or like we were talking about earlier, maybe they don't have a computer, don't know how to do that kind of stuff. So they're really boosting the service level. I think it's going to be a lot better for everybody. So we were kind of excited to hear that plan, that rolling out a new way to look at this office. That was her original promise, if you remember, when she was running for office and she first got there. It was to stop those lines that we all waited in at the Secretary's
now
State's office.
you don't have the line. You just can't get in. You're sitting.
Right. So now she's fixing that problem. Now she's fixing that problem. Yeah. And
I think
a lot
the
of
delays. If you couldn't get in to get an appointment, you have an expired plate.
Right.
You shouldn't be able to be ticketed right now.
Well, we actually just passed out of the Senate yesterday a bill to extend that date, so we don't get any fines or anything. So that will be taken care of. But it's good that we're focused on it, and then it should get better very soon. Right away, actually.
Fingers crossed. The State Senator, it's always great having you. I feel like every time you're on the show, you're just like this ray of light. And for a politician, that is great. Like it seems to me like you're excited every day that you go into the office.
There's so many ways to help. There's so many ways to make it better. You can't, you just got to love this job. That's